There are places in America where hope is a rumor and escape is a myth. In the heart of San Francisco Bay, where the water is black and bone-chilling, Alcatraz Island rises from the waves like a warning. Come here, and you will never leave. For almost 30 years, the Rock was home to America's most dangerous men. Murderers, thieves, legends with names like Capone and Birdman. But behind the endless steel doors and watchful towers, one story endures above all others. A story of patience, genius, and the single greatest escape in criminal history. When Frank Morris arrived at Alcatraz in 1960, no one paid him much attention. He was quiet, almost scholarly, with sharp eyes and the wary walk of a man who trusted no one. The guards knew his file: armed robbery, multiple escapes, a mind that tested in the top 2% of intelligence. Too smart for his own good, one warden said. Morris had spent his entire life on the margins, abandoned by his parents, raised in orphanages, drifting through reform schools and jail cells like a ghost. But Alcatraz was different. Here, the walls were thicker, the rules were harsher, and the possibility of escape was a fantasy. Frank Morris, though, was not like other men. At first, he blended in, earning his keep with small talk and quick hands. He watched everything. The routine was clockwork. Wake at 6:30, count at 7, breakfast in silence, labor in the workshop, locked back in cells by 5:30. But the monotony was a mask, and beneath it, Morris was mapping every inch of his cage. He learned which guards fell asleep on duty. He noted the blind spots in the yard, the moments when the noise of the foghorn drowned out the sounds of scraping or drilling. He learned about the prison's old utility corridor, a forgotten artery that snaked behind the cell blocks. Out of sight, out of mind. There was no hope alone. Morris needed partners, men he could trust, men with nothing left to lose. He found them in John and Clarence Anglin, two brothers from Georgia, expert bank robbers who could stay silent for months and never crack under pressure. They had grown up together, swimming the rivers of the South, stealing to survive, and always watching each other's backs. Together with Alan West, a car thief with a knack for improvisation, they became a crew. No violence, no arguments, just a single shared obsession: freedom. The plan began with a hole. Each cell in Alcatraz had a small air vent beneath the sink, barely wide enough for a child's arm. By day, the men chipped away at the crumbling concrete using spoons, discarded blades, and whatever scraps they could smuggle from the workshop. At night, they disguised the noise with the roar of the prison band's rehearsal. Morris on clarinet, covering the scrape of metal against stone. Progress was agonizingly slow. A centimeter at a time, dust hidden in pockets, debris flushed down toilets or scattered in the yard. Every morning, a cardboard grill painted to match the wall hid the growing holes from the guards' eyes. Morris was relentless, driving the others with calm, meticulous instructions. He built tools from old vacuum cleaner parts, fashioning a crude electric drill to speed up the work. The walls yielded, flaking and soft, revealing the secret corridors behind. But a tunnel was only the beginning. The bay was an even greater enemy. In the laundry rooms, they scavenged raincoats and cut them into strips, sewing together a raft and life vests with needle and thread pilfered from the workshop. 50 coats, stolen one by one. The seams were sealed with glue, melted with hot water, tested in the shadows. It was dangerous work. One careless move, one missing item, and everything would unravel. But luck, for once, was on their side. As spring turned to summer in 1962, the plan neared completion. Every night, Morris rehearsed the escape in his mind, each step, each obstacle, the precise timing needed to avoid patrols. He crafted dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and real hair collected from the barber shop, painting them with pigment swiped from art class. They would be placed on the pillows, turned just so, to fool the guards during their midnight checks. The pressure was unbearable. Every cough, every creak of a bed frame, every footstep outside the cell could spell disaster. But the men pushed on, week after week, holding their breath when the guards passed, sleeping with one eye open. Alan West began to crack, struggling to keep up, the anxiety eating at him. But Morris, always the leader, kept the group together with quiet reassurance. "Almost there," he would whisper. "Just a little longer." June 11th, 1962. The day the myth began. That evening, after dinner, the prison moved with its usual grinding rhythm. Chess games in the rec room, letters written home, lights out at 9:30 sharp. The men waited, bodies tense, sweat beading on their brows as the minutes ticked by. At 10 p.m., the last head count. Satisfied, the guards retreated to the warmth of the break room, pouring coffee, swapping jokes about the cold. Down in cell block B, 4 men lay perfectly still, breathing slow and deep. Then, as the prison fell into darkness, the escape began. One by one, they slipped the dummies onto their pillows, positioned the blankets, and squeezed through the holes behind their sinks. The air was thick with dust and fear. For West, panic struck. The plaster around his vent had hardened, sealing him in. He dug desperately with a spoon, but the clock was against him. He would not make it. Morris and the Anglins paused, waiting, whispering through the darkness. But time was running out. With heavy hearts, they left West behind, crawling into the blackness of the utility corridor. Inside the wall, the air was stifling, the darkness absolute. Rats scurried beneath their hands. Above, the footsteps of guards echoed through the pipes. One slip, one cough, and it was over. But they pressed forward, inch by inch, crawling along the corridor until they reached a ventilation shaft leading to the roof. They forced it open with a wrench, hoisting themselves into the cold night air. The city lights shimmered across the bay, impossibly far away. The roof was slick with dew, every movement amplified by the silence. A single misstep could send them tumbling to the yard below. Morris led the way, timing their crawl to the sweep of the searchlight. They descended a drain pipe to the ground, cutting across the yard to the north shore, hearts hammering as the wind carried the scent of salt and danger. On the beach, the raft waited, deflated, hidden among the rocks. They worked in silence, inflating it with a stolen concertina, their fingers numb, the water lapping at their ankles. At 1:30 a.m., with one last look at the prison that had tried to break them, they pushed off into the unknown. The bay was a living thing, angry, merciless, 47 degrees. The wind clawed at their faces. The current threatened to pull them under, but they paddled on, muscles burning, teeth chattering, the city growing larger with every stroke. Somewhere behind them, Alcatraz stood silent, unaware that its legend was unraveling. Dawn broke over San Francisco with a chill. On the island, the guards found the empty cells, the makeshift heads staring back with lifeless eyes. Panic spread like wildfire. Alarms blared, doors slammed, every inch of the prison searched and searched again. In the utility corridor, the tunnel gaped wide, proof that something unthinkable had happened. The greatest manhunt in American history began at 7 a.m., with helicopters slicing through the sky and police boats sweeping the shore. They found nothing. No bodies, no footprints, only a paddle washed up on Angel Island, a few pieces of raincoat, and the rumors that always follow miracles. Officially, the men were listed as missing and presumed drowned. The waters of the bay, authorities insisted, were unforgiving. No one could have survived. But no one could say for certain. There were no bodies, no witnesses, nothing but a gaping hole in the legend of Alcatraz. The questions began almost immediately. Fishermen swore they saw a raft drifting near the Golden Gate. A car was stolen in Marin County that same night, vanishing without a trace. Years later, a postcard arrived at the FBI, signed only with the name John Anglin, claiming they had made it to Brazil, living quietly, waiting for the world to forget. A photograph surfaced of two men in sunglasses, graying and smiling in the sun, but the truth remained just out of reach. For Alan West, left behind in his cell, there was only regret. He confessed everything to the FBI, drawing diagrams, recalling every detail, hoping for some redemption. But his testimony only deepened the mystery. He was certain his friends had made it, certain that somewhere out there, Morris and the Anglins were alive. Decades passed, and the myth only grew. The FBI closed the case, but rumors persisted. Every so often, a letter would surface. Faded, cryptic, begging for a deal. "I'm still alive," it read. But not for much longer. Some believed, others scoffed, but no one could explain how three men, unarmed and desperate, had vanished so completely. Alcatraz, the inescapable, had been beaten. For Frank Morris, the ending is a question mark. Did he find peace on a sunlit farm in Brazil, or did the bay claim him, the dream of freedom sinking beneath the waves? The Anglin brothers, were they shadows in the crowd, slipping through life unseen, or ghosts haunting the edges of a legend too big to die? The mystery lingers in the fog, drifting over the bay each morning as tourists stare at the silent prison and wonder, could I have done it? Could I have risked everything for a chance at life beyond the walls? And if I had made it, would I ever stop looking over my shoulder? History remembers Frank Morris not as a criminal, but as the architect of hope. A man who refused to accept the impossible, who saw a crack in the stone and made it a doorway. His escape was more than a prison break. It was a challenge to the system, a reminder that walls are never truly unbreakable.